Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I am KRX, and we're going to be looking at Rise of Industry here. Played about 10 hours so far. Kind of wanted to do like a recorded Let's Play for it, just kind of an exploration, kind of working through, commentating what I'm thinking, what I'm doing, kind of play it a little bit more, because I've been really actually enjoying this game. I've played Industry Giant 2, which is like this game, but I haven't played a lot of the other more mainstream, more popular games that are to this genre of sort of like logistical movement and production chains and stuff like that. We could do sandbox, so we don't have to worry about money and tech tree and stuff. I think not worrying about money kind of defeats the point of this whole thing. I think the progression of the game is pretty sandboxy. The game itself is kind of a sandbox game, so I don't think we need to do that specifically. The scenarios are kind of, you just make your own scenario. You can sort of, I guess, have some different properties in terms of like making the map itself, and you can actually set different rules for the map and stuff like that. So you could create sort of like a little bit scenario, and then you could share that with people and stuff like that. So, but for the most part, career is kind of the main way to play. And career, that kind of almost makes it seem like it's a campaign or a story or something. It's not. Basically, this is just going to be loading up a new map and just going at it and taking advantage of, the ecosystem that you're presented with, right? The situation, the resources, the demands, the cities and stuff that you're presented with, and just going with from there. We are going to have some AI opponents in the game, which is kind of interesting. Never really thought of a game like this having AI opponents, but I could see that being really interesting. Maybe sort of further down the line. But yeah, for the most part, I think we'll just leave this all on 100% here. You can actually adjust, like we're on experienced, which is, we're not super experienced, but basically this is normal. It says experienced, but really this is normal. And then newcomer would be like, quite a bit easier, like significantly easier. It's saying it's 20% difficulty, which, I mean, effectively, if you think about it. Oops. Then you can do a custom, right? You can adjust all of these individually. But in fact, the startup right here, 280% difficulty base, that seems like that'd be very difficult. I'm finding that experience is pretty solid. So I think we're just going to go with sort of normal for now. And then, but I could see it being very fun that, once this isn't interesting, you can actually customize the different things that you think need to be harder. You can kind of do a self-tuning of the game, and the game will sort of flex the difficulty just so you can kind of like, be like, oh, what difficulty percentage are you playing at? Not so much which setting are you playing at. All right, let's get in here. This game kind of feels like there's a lot to work out. I mean, anyone that enjoys sort of like efficiency type production games and stuff like that, I'm getting which is definitely something I really enjoy. And this one actually feels really fun, feels really satisfying when you can line everything up and get the big paydays and start making money. It's not too hard to make money, but it's not super easy either. And the game is pretty smart, actually. You can do a lot of manual control, but there's also a lot of automation that's pretty good too. So we do need to figure out where to place down our headquarters, and where we place the headquarters, essentially around one of these, right? There's different regions here that are all sort of enclosed around a different town. And we could basically kind of figure out which one of these do we want to sort of settle in first. And wherever we put the headquarters, that's going to essentially mean that, okay, we have a permit, we have a building permit in these regions. We can kind of see the regions here. This is not the easiest thing to see, but there you go. It's kind of weird that actually that Beaver Dam actually goes across the river. You would think that the river would be a natural divider between regions, but there you go. So we could actually start clicking on these, and we can see like, okay, farmer's market, they have a hardware store. So these are things that Beaver Dam actually wants for us to produce if we're going to sell to them. We can sell to any region, though. We can actually like set up anywhere. We could set up in the middle of the map and then be selling to any of these cities. That's not a problem. It's just that we can only build in a particular region, so it might be more important. Can we not look at the resources? Maybe we can't even look at resources from this, to be honest, until we actually set up a region. We don't even know exactly what the resources. I mean, we could see oil out here, for example. We could assume that there's probably fish in you know, in different parts of the ocean or maybe in the river and stuff like that, or in some of the lakes. And I guess we could go around and actually look for like the iron and such on the ground, or see where there's a wooded area for good forestry. But usually there's a thing that'll highlight the resources, and I'm not seeing it up in the top right for whatever reason. I'm going to take a look at River Ridge here. I'm actually kind of wondering if this... Oh, okay, this actually will give you a list here. And we can see that River Ridge is actually so large that it actually has 3 shops. Oh, an ironmonger. So we can see that River Ridge is already like a very like large established place. I don't know if this is actually important or optimal, but I typically like to put my headquarters down where the biggest city is. Maybe that's a little bit cheesy, I don't know. But what we can see here is like if we look at the farmer's market, which is sort of like a lower tier shop, you know, grapes. I mean, these are primary goods, fish, grapes, these are basic things. You don't process, you know, potatoes and, you know, these are just, we're just selling unprocessed foods in many cases. We actually would have to do some level of, you know, setup for getting the eggs or the, you know, sort of the animal products. But a lot of this stuff is just set up a farm and start making it and sell it. Naturally, this stuff is going to make less money because of that. Hardware stores, you know, kind of a little bit of a step up from the farmer's market, but nothing too particularly. I mean, wood, oil, coal, just pretty primitive stuff, right? But the ironmonger is kind of special because the ironmonger, I mean, steel barrels, just steel in general, diodes, you know, buttons, so on and so forth. There's the cans. I mean, there's things that we can actually try to, you know, produce and actually create supply chains for and actually make significantly more money if we can produce cans. In fact, actually just steel in general, which is used to make cans, it says it requires steel to make cans, is actually being sold at 150% value, market value right now, because there's a huge, well, because the people that live here really have a demand for steel. So this could be, and this is, I think, a tier 2, whereas the cans would be actually, no, steel might be a tier 1, cans might be a tier 2, and then eventually you can make something like a tier 3 product. And then raw materials are sort of like in their own tier that's actually like a tier 0. So this is actually like getting steel going could actually be amazing. The only thing I'm wondering is, do we actually have iron in this region? Because if we didn't have iron, that'd be super sad. I don't even know how to check that. Let's just get this down and hope for the best. Let's get this down and hope for the best. So there we go. We are declaring to build in this area. Let's make sure we have it paused. It is paused by default, which is great. In fact, actually, does it actually let you replace this? No, you can't bulldoze your headquarters once you made it. This is like, typically if you destroy something after, well, the game is paused, you get a full refund if you haven't unpaused. Otherwise, I think it's a 75% return. And it'd probably be a lot less on higher difficulties. So now we actually have these sort of things at the top. We can go into here and find the different sort of map modes, essentially. And we can click on the resource, and hopefully we got, hopefully there's iron. There's not any iron. Oh no. That's an interesting start. Now we can get a permit to build in these other areas, but I'm just thinking we double down on this. In fact, our opponents, if they settle in like St. Michael's, they're going to actually have iron. They could make steel. We can't. In fact, this would have been the place to settle. You settle right here, make all of this, and you ship it over to River Ridge. Doesn't matter if you don't have a permit for River Ridge. See, that's weird to me that you can't see the resources before you settle down, but hey, maybe that's, I don't know, maybe that's partly thematic, you know? You pick your land and then you kind of do the surveying for the resources that are available here. We have gas, we have oil, we have copper. We could look here and be like, okay. And I mean, crops and stuff are just, we could just be doing crop goods and things like that without too much of a hassle regardless. Oil seems to be selling at a large premium. Gas actually at 150%, so gas and oil could both be pretty decent. I don't know if there's anything here that doesn't require steel though. Plastic and copper. Huh. Hold shift for more information. We could look into buttons potentially. I haven't done anything with that. Glass and sand. For ceramics. Copper wire. So there's still some things here actually. It looks like we can do with the copper that we have. So we have the copper out here. Now what we need to do is we're going to notice that if we go into the gatherers and we look for... Oh, we already have a copper thing? Oh, the heck? I thought we would have had to research that. Because we can go into the research tab at the top right. There's that button to go into the research tab here. And apparently we already start with all this stuff researched. I didn't realize that. Well, that's cool. And it's cool because the research tree actually very easily shows you sort of the recipes, right? The recipes are kind of implied here. It tells you if you hover over it, but it shows you clearly coal and iron make steel. And then that just goes right into making, I mean, just steel makes cans, so it's super basic. Same with steel barrels and steel frames. And then these steel frames might actually push into something else entirely. We don't know. That makes sense that it would. Sand is just sand. You know, we can see that it's produced at a sand collector. We can make glass. Glass goes right into ceramics. We saw how, and that requires glass and additional sand, actually. This requires glass. Making glass requires coal. We have the different home goods here, which would include the copper tubing that just requires copper. That's actually kind of neat. And this, the copper wires just require copper. We could just do a mad dash for copper. And then the buttons come down here. Sorry, those are diodes. Where are the buttons? Where are the buttons? Oh, wow. Is that a tier? No, tier 3 would be down here. Buttons require plastic, requires oil and gas. That's like a whole different chain. Dang. I feel like buttons would be really tricky to get going because you got to set up 2 raw resources to get plastic. Then you need plastic factories. Then you need button factories. And that's not even aside from the fact that you need copper into copper wires into buttons. So I think actually looking at this, it seems like the play would either be just setting up sort of copper wires, honestly. Just copper wires, copper tubing. We can maybe kind of go into something like this. We can. The cool thing is eventually the towns will prosper. If you're giving goods to the towns and things like that, and you're selling things and the economy is booming and everything, and these towns will grow over time. And they'll add new shops, higher end shops for their higher end populace. Stuff like that. It's actually pretty neat. It's actually pretty neat. So if we were going to do copper, for example. Now, I believe in the normal difficulty, copper never runs out, which is kind of, well, it's pretty convenient to say the least. Whereas in the lower difficulties, or sorry, the higher difficulties, this copper would actually be a limited resource, I believe. The hardware store doesn't want to buy copper directly. Would be buying oil and gas though directly. We could just set this stuff up just to sell, just sort of as a primitive, like kind of just, we're almost bypassing farms, which is kind of interesting, which means hopefully we'll be able to potentially bypass a lot of the water production because farms and ranches require a ton of water. And that's actually kind of annoying. It's not annoying, but it's like, it's just a lot of, you know, there's just, you got to set up a decent amount of water infrastructure to get all that stuff supplied and working properly. Whereas this stuff here is going to be, I mean, getting oil and coal and stuff like that is pretty basic. But then again, you can see it doesn't really sell for nearly as much as the foods do. Foods sell for way more because they're kind of harder to get going. I mean, we could still do foods because we could still sell some of this stuff. We only have 10 million bucks though. I mean, these factories are expensive. They cost a lot of money. But this is a huge decision in the game, right? It's kind of figuring out what are we going to do first. 130% definitely isn't as good as 150%. That'll fluctuate over time. The buttons look good. You know, we got the ceramics, but the annoying thing about the ceramics is we don't have anywhere to sell glass. So we'd have to go just full on ceramics, which takes us down a totally different path. I think we're going to actually be satisfied. Yeah, the other bummer here is only 18,000 per. That's not, I mean, that's nothing compared to the steel, which wouldn't be very hard to get going at all anyways, or the cans. I mean, the buttons will be good, but yeah, I don't know. That's tricky. That's going to be later on before we get buttons going. The nice thing is they'll buy 9 units of each per 15 days. So they'll buy 18 per month of both copper wires and of copper tubing. And we just need tons of copper to make this happen. So that could still be a good amount of total money. if we're really, you know, supplying that every tick. Yeah, well, we know that copper is the most important thing here. We've got a lot of gas and oil, a lot of copper out here, but that's out of our region. This is the only copper we have. 3445. I don't actually even know what that means. I don't think that's the quantity of copper because I don't think it's going to run out. I think that's probably like the area in the map or something. I'm just kind of looking around and visually actually trying to identify where the copper is physically. And it looks like it's just these 5. So, oh, what we need to do though is in the tech tree, we can actually get some new, the first 3 techs are free, but only for the first and second row. So, man. Oh wait, they'll buy diodes. They'll buy diodes. What did buttons take again? Buttons take that's right, buttons take plastic. The diodes take glass. So I think we probably end up kind of going this direction. We definitely get the copper wires going. We definitely get the copper wires going. The other thing we might actually want to do is we might want to actually buff up the gathering bits. Where are the primary gatherers? Right here, place 2 additional land-based harvesters. This could be really, really good because this would allow 1 copper plant to work all of the copper in this area because we saw that there was 5 nodes of copper. 1 plant's only going to be able to work 3 of those, so we'd have to build 2 of them. This would actually save us a pretty decent amount of money here. This would just kind of clean up the whole process, but it might not be worth... It's not going to be worth rushing for that, though. We might just try to get by with just 3, just 1, and then just upgrade this knowing that we could go up to 5. I think getting roads is pretty nice because urban roads, you know, people move a bit faster there than on the dirt roads. I think it's 50% speed on dirt roads, but technically I guess that's not like super important. One-way roads are super, super nice. Man, what are we doing down here though? A lot of this stuff is just so easy to research because the first row we could see it only costs 200,000. The second row costs 400,000. So we save a decent amount of money if we do focus on getting secondary unlocks. I was kind of looking and seeing what maybe we should do here. Basic distribution, can build truck depots. That's not going to be something we need to rush for. Lots of different stuff here to research, and it gets quite expensive down below. And actually, like, you know, playing for a while, I never, like, had everything done. So, I feel like it's a good pace. It kind of looks thin at first, but I think it's a good amount of stuff here. This would just allow us to increase the efficiency of the gatherers here. So that would allow us just to kind of boost the actual efficiency of the building. We'll probably want something like this eventually, especially if we only have that 1 bit of copper. We're going to want to try to squeeze that as much as we can. We could unlock glass. That would be coal into sand. Did we have a coal area? Oh, I don't think we have coal. The heck? No, we don't even have coal. So what could we, so that's kind of the wrong direction then. That's kind of the wrong direction. No one wants to buy any of this stuff until the town levels up. This is a bunch of like refrigerator. This is like appliances, right? So we need the town to get like an appliance shop or something like that. Then we could be making bank if we go this direction with it. This requires steel and gas. We don't have that yet. We really need to get another territory, which is weird because usually I've always been kind of self-sufficient. Refined oil. This, don't know what we're going to do with that. We know that the plastics are needed for the button. I think we actually get plastics up and going. The problem is no one can buy plastics right now, so it's pointless at the moment. And it's going to take, it's 1.8 million to buy the button research. That's going to take too long. It's going to take way too long. We need like a side, we need something on the side here. And we could just do vegetable farms. We could do... Yeah, I mean, we could do vegetable farms. I think that's kind of... But vegetable farms is, like I said, that like it's a lower end tech. So it's not as expensive. Wow, we're kind of actually like I'm getting stuck here, guys. A lot of interesting choices we could go here. We could go urban roads. That's kind of nice, just because it's free. Here's the steel frame coming in. So this is like computer stuff. Pretty high-end stuff. Cars. I think we just... Actually, we do copper tubing. If we have an excess of copper, then we can, you know, we can just be making both of these and hopefully making a lot of money, or maybe we do a mix. So hopefully that'll work out. I think in terms of researching, what was it that we said we wanted to just kind of research casually? Let's grab that. Let's grab vegetables, because I know that the market's going to buy those. We don't have coal for glass. We don't have coal for glass. So we can't do the diodes. Technically, yes, we can do buttons, but that's going to be incredibly... I mean, I don't think we want to rush for that. Are we already at the point where we just need a bunch of higher level technology, like right off the bat? Because a lot of the low level stuff just isn't lining up with us here. We probably should have done the one-way roads, but that's fine. I like the one-way roads a lot. Getting the truck depots is a nice flexibility. That's going to make it easier for us to sell to other towns, even if we don't have permits in those towns. We're going to need this stuff eventually. Let's just get those queued up, and then we'll kind of... Actually, well, the point of doing this one is because we wanted to go into... Yeah, hold on. Yeah, the point of doing that was to get that. So that's actually, I think, the rush. But because vegetables are cheap, we'll just do vegetables first. No. We'll do that, then we'll do vegetables, and then we can sort of set that up for money. Get the one-way roads, get the truck depots, start selling. We could sell multiple different places, and then we'll go into plastics, and heck, we might even just rush for buttons. Might rush for buttons. So let's start actually playing the game, guys. Sorry about that, everybody. That's actually one of the meaty decisions of the game, and that's actually what's kind of, you know, I don't know. That's kind of what's fun about the game, is just thinking that stuff through, not really being on much of a time pressure or anything to do stuff. Okay, so let's get our copper industry going here. It's going to be in the gatherers. Now the question is, it doesn't... Okay, so it just simply does not let you build. It shows you the 5 that we're in range of here. It simply is just not going to allow us to build. Interesting how that one at the bottom is definitely in the grid. Interesting. I don't know. So let's add the harvesters here. Now the cool thing is these harvesters, I believe, automatically teleport. And then we'll be able to add 2 more once we get this thing upgraded, right? Here. So I rebound that key. I can't remember what it is by default, but it's I have it to X, where it lets me just go into this so that I can more easily sort of place stuff down. We don't really need the resource thing popping up, but I do like showing the production bubbles. That's going to show us that this is either working, not working, so on and so forth. Okay. So... now we're going to need... Actually, you know what? I am going to have the resources on for a second, because I just want to make sure that we don't, like, build on top of our oil or anything like that. gas kind of just right up here. What does that actually visually look like? Oh, it's just these little puddles of gas. Okay. And then we have just puddles of oil. I don't think it's going to let us build on top of those either, which is kind of nice. I'm just going to build with the normal roads because I think this is just worth it. Let's, for the extra cost, to just have the vehicles going faster and just minimize the traffic. Let's actually figure out where this warehouse is going to go. It needs to encompass... It needs to encompass the warehouse, or the actual gathering bit there. And I'm actually just kind of thinking... That could be decent, comes in, then it leaves. Yeah, this could be, well, Let's try just putting it down here. This might need to get edited, not a big deal. Not a big deal. We're just putting a road around this because vehicles are going to have to kind of be going around and about. One of the things that's kind of tricky is kind of remembering to make sure that the roads got connected, because sometimes they don't. They have those little, like you kind of saw how there was that little issue there. Like these are not connected roads. So that's just something you gotta kind of watch out for a little bit. We might actually need this water in the future. Whoops, I should have that closed. Oh, you know what's actually going to be really, really, really important though is getting our factories within range of the warehouse. I think that's even more important than this because this should automatically just send to the warehouse. That's going to be totally fine. Let's get the factories going because we need glassworks and smelting. Why do we have that? Is that where, that must be where we make the copper stuff. Because it's nice, because until you research something that can actually be produced at a particular factory, it's grayed out. So it's kind of a little bit of a nice thing there. What we don't actually know yet is what it takes to make either of these, like what the actual ratios are on this stuff. Harvest every 10 days. Harvesters place 3 out of 3. We're going to have to see how much that's producing, but I'm assuming that's going to produce 1 per 10 days. And that's going to feed into ultimately 9 per month. Here we need 2 copper to make 2 copper wires. So 2 copper makes 2 copper wires. If we have, 10 copper, we'll make 10 copper wires. We don't have enough copper. We don't have enough copper. I'm actually kind of curious. Okay, what if we set it to this? It's the exact same. It's literally the exact same. So we're just going to do copper wire. We can't possibly make enough copper wire to actually sell all of it. So we're just going to do that, and that's going to be totally dandy. So copper is going to get delivered to the warehouse. Trucks are going to go out from the warehouse to bring it into here. Then what we could do is we could actually do a distribution warehouse closer to the actual town. The cool thing is I don't think warehouses actually have upkeep, which is kind of neat. Although I just made that a little bit too far away to be utilized. Yeah, we're in a little bit of... That's actually not going to do anything for us at the moment. Unless we set this. Wait a second. Let's manually set this. Manually set it to the warehouse that's further away. There we go. And then that warehouse should just distribute it. No problemo. So this warehouse is going to focus on shipping copper to the wire production plants. Copper wire plants. And then these are going to just directly ship it to this warehouse when they're done. And then this warehouse will push it to the town. Eventually, we'll be able to get some specialized trucks actually making this trip. And it'll be a little bit more efficient. Okay. So that's good. We're here, though. We need to set this to manual as well. The warehouse that's further away. And just everything that you make, just ship it off. That's going to be fine. Then what we'll do is from this warehouse, we need to create a destination for the product. And the product is going to be a tier 1 product, which is the copper wire. And we're going to sell that at the Ironmonger in River Ridge. Perfect. And for now, we're just going to send off as much as we can because we know that there's no way that we're going to flood the market. But typically, if you're flooding the market, that is going to have a negative effect on the price. Okay, so that's actually set up and ready to go. We have 8 million more bucks though. So we should get, that's not going to be enough. That's not going to be enough to actually be making money. We need more, we need to invest more of our money into our overall economy here. We know that we could do, we know we could just be selling stuff for the hardware store like gas and oil. I'm just not sure. Like, I mean, 10, we could sell up to 20 oil. Well, 10 oil, if we could sell 10 oil a month, even though we could sell 20 per month, if we just do 10 oil a month, that's 40,000. That should be enough to cover the cost of the oil building. So that should be, it should be worth getting these set up. So we are going to set those up because we have gas here and we have oil here. We're going to set all of that up in the next episode. Thanks everybody for hanging out and bearing with me. I know that we spent a little bit of time dug into the tech tree there, but that's one of the, you know, deciding where you're going to start, what resources you're going to go for, what you're going to, you know, be building first is a huge decision in this game, and it's one of the most exciting parts of the game. Actually, it's just that start, right? It's like starting a new campaign in Civilization. It's just exciting times. So thank you so much everybody for hanging out. I will see you guys in the next one, and we'll continue this this Let's Play of Rise of Industry.